Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Now, as you all know by now, we feature businesses of all sizes on this podcast and talk about the one thing that they all have in common: how technology is transforming their industry. But I'm also conscious you don't always get to see what goes on behind the curtain here. I mean, you might hear me say email me or tweet me at the end of every episode. What happens to some of those conversations? Because away from the microphone, I try to be the connector guy. So if a startup founder contacts me with a problem, they're feeling low, or they're just in need of a little inspiration, I'm the guy that will say, hey, you need to speak with, and then point them in the right direction. Because helping people is one of my favourite aspects of recording this daily tech podcast. And like I said, I'm conscious that's something you don't get to see. So if you are a tech startup founder at any stage of your journey, I always try and inspire you every day. And that's why today I've invited the guys from HubSpot onto the show. And we all know about HubSpot, right? You know, they're a huge company. But they weren't always like that. And they too have been on their own tech startup journey. And that's what I wanted to share today. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to Dublin in Ireland so we can speak with Kieran Flanagan, VP of Marketing at HubSpot. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, my name is Kieran Flanagan. I am VP of Marketing for a company called HubSpot. And the real kind of 10-second introduction to HubSpot is we have a full suite of growth tools for growing companies. So marketing, sales, customer success, and CRM. And what I do at HubSpot, I've really done three core roles during my time at HubSpot. I joined in the first group of 12 employees way back when. To grow out our international business. That went really well. We grew pretty fast. I did that for 2.5 years. Then I joined another small group of people who had the mission to grow out a different go-to-market and kind of disrupt our current go-to-market and through freemium. And I did that for another 2.5 years. And then over the previous 12 months, what I've really done is taken on the entire top part of HubSpot's funnel, or what we call a flywheel. And it's basically all of the demand we generate as a business. And the interesting thing about HubSpot is what most people find interesting about us is like we're in this group of fastest growing SaaS companies, and all of our revenue comes from demand created by the marketing team. So we don't do cold calling, outbound sales, any of that type of thing.
Fantastic. And I suspect that most people listening all over the world will know all about your full stack of products for marketing, sales, service, and CRM that are famously powerful alone, but obviously better when used together. And also, I think to many people listening, particularly startup founders, HubSpot is a huge company. But it's not always been this way. And I'm quite conscious that we often only judge an individual or a company by the success that we see right now. But we don't share that 10-year overnight success story that contained blood, sweat, tears, and a lot of sacrifices along the way. So with that in mind, can I take you guys back in time and maybe ask you to offer an overview of the story behind HubSpot and the challenges that you had to overcome as a startup to get right where you are today?
Yeah, it's interesting because even when I joined, which was when HubSpot they had product market fit, they were seeing some success, and the company was maybe 300 people. And I really wanted to join a startup, and I was like, oh, wow, this company, maybe it's too big. And now we're, many multiples of that. And I think over the past 12 years, we've been lucky in that we've managed to figure out some things that have really helped our growth. And so one of those things was going international. That's been a big success of ours for us, and international continues to grow at a really, really rapid pace. Like one of the interesting things about startups, and particularly HubSpot did this well, is I think it's always good to have a mission and a clear enemy, or something that you are kind of fighting against. And so when HubSpot initially launched, the story of it is interesting in that they had this kind of mission to disrupt outbound marketing and to help marketers do better marketing. And at the time, we kind of pushed a lot on that and talked about doing lovable marketing. And what that does is it creates a lot of fans, right? It creates people who have empathy towards that and want to see themselves being a better marketer. And then our job is to supply the tools to help them do that. And I would say initially when we first launched, our tools probably didn't fulfill the promise of our mission. And over time, our tools have grown into that mission. And that obviously helps a lot, generates a lot of word of mouth, helps with churn. And then we've also managed to continually take risks and disrupt our own go-to-market. So we were a very fast-growing SaaS company that had the traditional type of funnel where you generate leads and you turn those leads into opportunities for a sales team, and a sales team qualify them and sell them. And then at the start of 2006, we launched a whole new suite of products, sales products, and we went to market in a very different way. We went through a freemium model because we believe that customers in the future, and that's happening today, want to extract value from your software before they pay you money. And that's been another decision that's worked out really, really well for us.
And I'm curious as well, as someone in your position, you've probably had a lot of experience in this field as well. And for startup founders that are listening, is there anything that you think startups should be focusing on sooner than they actually usually do?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, one of the things that is interesting about startups is thinking about the decisions you make today, thinking about those decisions through the lens of would we have made the same decision in 3 years' time? Like the company that we want to become, would we have made that decision? Because you try to get the balance right between making, like startups always need to grow. They're always under pressure to get growth, like most companies, but it's kind of more acute when you're a startup. And so you can sometimes make decisions that are great in the short term, but maybe have long-term repercussions that you haven't thought about. And so what do I mean by that? Well, a good example of that is when I'm in a startup, one of the things I really want to do is hire talented people. And maybe it's a little more difficult for me because I'm not an established company. So one of the bargaining chips I have is titles. And so what I can do is I can offer people who may be a manager or something within one company, like VP roles, or I can give away these titles a lot easier than more established companies can. And that's kind of good in the short term because you get these talented people in. But as the company grows and you need to add more kind of seasoned and experienced people to your bench and your senior leadership team, you start to create a kind of problems for yourself. You have a weird mismatch of the people who are like at that VP level or whatever level it is at. And you can get yourself into a situation where you might actually have to like demote people, or you get yourself into a situation where you can't hire the people you want because when they look at the other people who have the same title as them, they don't think that's the company for them. So I think that goes across like many things in terms of how you build your infrastructure. Like when you're a startup, and we've definitely done this at times, you cobble together tech, and the decisions you make when you build that infrastructure are very difficult to untangle when you become a bigger company. Also, when you're building product, right, the decisions I'm making today on what's going to make my product successful, is that the thing that is the right decision to make in the long term for the company we want to be in 3 years' time. And there's two other really quick things I'll touch on that you can start investing in for a startup that can definitely give you an edge. One of them is remote work. I'm a very big proponent that I think remote work is going to change the way that companies kind of structure and the way that people work with companies. And I think startups can be a lot more flexible in how quickly they can operationalize remote work within their business. And it just helps them to better hire and retain talent. And then the other thing you can invest in a lot quicker than often startups do is like, how do I actually grow this business? Where's all of my demand and my users going to come from? So initially you may use a lot of paid advertising, and that's good for maybe the short and medium term to get some momentum going there. But in the long term, you probably need to figure out another channel where you can drive sustainable growth. And the thing to think about is like, what is my product channel fit? So startups think, what is my product market fit? Another thing you need to think about is your product channel fit. What distribution channel does my product naturally fit into that's going to give me sustainable growth? For example, does it fit naturally into like Google and search? Does it fit naturally into Facebook, virality, all of these different ways that can generate sustainable users and growth for you? So there's some of the things I think that, yes, it would be good for startups to think about in a very early stage.
And a line you mentioned there, which I'm so glad you brought up, was investing on how people work, because I think we do often talk about the technology and the investing and so many other priorities, but your people and the culture change as well is so important. So I'm curious again, I mean, when should a startup start thinking about their culture, and what are some common mistakes that you've seen businesses make when it comes to that office culture and introducing culture change?
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, because if you think about it, and you would know this because you interview a lot of tech leaders, right? Tech, in some ways, it's becoming commoditized. Like it's never been so easy to create a startup, because it's never been so easy to create software. And when you look at the competition in all of these different spaces, you just have more competition than ever. And so how do you stand out if product becomes more commoditized? Well, your customer experience and your employees are really pivotal to your success. And culture is something I think that is becoming very important to all of these talented people who have a lot of choice in terms of where they want to work. And so there's a really good story from Brian Halligan, co-founder of HubSpot. Brian and Dharmesh are founders of HubSpot. And Brian would tell you in the very early days of HubSpot, he really wasn't thinking about culture, right? He was thinking about all of the things that you would think about as a CEO of how do I grow this business. And he wasn't thinking about culture until a really respected CEO, someone he very, very much respected, told him he would be very sorry if he didn't invest in it in a very early stage. And so he gave that mission to really think about the company's culture to Dharmesh, who's openly an introvert. So the match there was kind of funny. But Dharmesh has done an incredible job of instilling that into the fabric of HubSpot. And I think that's really one of the reasons that we've managed to grow and that people want to work for us, because we're not just attracting customers with our mission, but we're actually attracting talented people who want to join us because they believe in our mission. And one of our most popular assets that we've published is something called the Culture Code, created by Dharmesh. It's been downloaded millions and millions of times, and it gives a really good overview of what HubSpot stands for. We've been told that's been a real lever in why people have joined our company. So definitely pivotal for startups to really think about the culture they want to have and the people that they want to attract to their brand.
So looking forward in 2019, I've got another year of opportunity, and it's moving quickly already. But I'm curious, what are HubSpot actually focused on this year? Is there anything you can share with me about the direction that you're taking and what's really important to you over there at HubSpot at the moment?
Yeah, so we think of our business in terms of not a funnel, but a flywheel. And just to give you a little bit of a description of what we mean by that, instead of this kind of linear experience where you get people to the top and they kind of fall out at the bottom, we really think of our business as a continuous loop with 3 stages. So you track people to your business, and when you get them towards your business, how do you engage with them? And then when they become customers, how do you delight them? And if you think about that as a loop, when you delight customers, that word of mouth is so important today that starts to attract more people to your brand, right? So it's a continuous loop. And the thing we care a lot about is at each stage in our flywheel, how do we create more force, right? How do we push that loop further forward? And how do we reduce friction? And what we are obsessed about is removing friction from how people have to interact with us and how customers buy our product. So a good example is we've invested a lot within live chat and bots, right? So if you want to come to our website and you want to experience and learn about HubSpot through live chat, or if you even just don't want to talk to a human, you want to communicate with a bot, you can do that. If you want to talk to someone, you can easily book a meeting with one of our reps. You don't even need to reach out through a form. You can do it through an embeddable meeting tool. So you remove the friction of how someone actually needs to interact with you. And then the other thing we really are invested in is force. So how do we get more people to experience HubSpot's content? Because that's one of the things we're really renowned for. And so we really help to educate marketers and salespeople, and we want to do a better job of that. So as an example, one of the things you can do today is you can go download content in PDF formats, but you can also now, what we're further investing in is when you create a HubSpot account, you don't just get all of our free software, you get this whole free library of free video courses taught by experts, helping you to be better at your job. And that's another big investment area for us. And then there's other things like we're very, very much invested in international. That's been a huge part of our growth story, going very, very well. We have a really big event in Boston called Inbound, where people come together to try to figure out how to create remarkable experiences for their customers, how to create remarkable experiences just for the world in general. One of the previous keynote speakers was actually Michelle Obama, and that event had 24,000 people at it last year, and we want to keep on growing that and making it a really, really big event. So there's some of the things that we are looking ahead to for 2009. We're pretty excited. Things are going pretty well.
Now, last year alone, I think we spoke to startups in over 50 different countries, and they all had different startup stories. And equally, I've connected startup founders with other startup founders that can all help each other along that startup journey. So for anybody listening that is in the world of startups and the various stages of that journey, how does HubSpot today help startups grow better? And also, can you talk about what are some of the programs that HubSpot offers for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a few years ago, we really realized our model was not allowing HubSpots or startups to grow and scale better, right? And that's what we're really passionate about, is how do we help every company grow and scale better? And the reason for that was not because our product isn't a great fit for startups. It really is. It's just because it was cost prohibitive. So startups obviously just have less cash to invest in those early days. And so what we did was we created a program called HubSpot for Startups. You can go look for it. You'll find it on our website. And that program includes a startup-friendly price for our entire HubSpot growth platform. And it's a really well discounted price. You can go and view it on the website. And you don't just get the actual growth platform at a very heavily discounted price. We also believe in education, right? Education is key. It's what we've always been obsessed with. It's how do we make people better at their jobs? And along with that growth platform, what we give startups is we give them founder mentoring from experienced founders who have had success. And we give them a whole program of content and video content, all of this amazing content to help you do better and grow better. And one of the other things we recently launched is HubSpot Ventures, which we're really excited by. It's a fund to help startups grow better, $30 million fund. And we really want to invest in the companies who share the same mission as us and have that mission of how do we help companies scale and grow better. So they're the two things that I think can help startups get started with HubSpot. And then also to reiterate, we have this whole freemium layer of our product. You can actually go and start using our tools for free from day one.
And like I said, we do have a lot of founders that will be listening to this podcast today. So I'm curious, what is the one piece of advice that a mentor of yours has given you along your own personal journey that maybe you could share with me today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very fortunate to have worked for an incredible CMO, Kip Bodnar, who's our CMO. And one of the things Kip told me, I remember running around trying to do a million things at once. And there was a lot going on. And he told me that, the most important thing for you to focus on is making sure you are at all times hiring and retaining talent, like making sure you're really focused on the team that you were building. It's going to be pivotal to your success. And in the early days of management, when you're growing your team, you tend to think a lot of your success is very much dependent upon your own ability to execute. And you start to learn actually your success is very much dependent upon your ability to grow an amazing team and help them to grow within the company. And the other thing that's, an outside mentor gave me advice on that I think is really true is when you were on these rocket ships, right? HubSpot is a rocket ship. I'm sure many other people you've talked to are on companies that are rocket ships. You just want to enjoy the ride. Sometimes it can, it's an up and down journey, but they're not easy to find. And when you find them, they're actually a lot of fun. So you just enjoy the experience.
Fantastic. Now, I've also recently discovered that HubSpot has not one, not two, but 3 podcasts too. Can you tell me a little bit more about them and what they're about?
Yeah, so we have 3 podcasts. We obviously believe in all formats of content, and podcast is one of the things we're excited by and excited to invest in more. So we have the Growth Show. It's really inspiring stories behind how people grow and create business, and that's from an amazing host, Megan Anderson. Really great podcast. We have the Skill Up podcast. The Skill Up podcast is an extension of our academy, what I talked about earlier on, where you can go create a HubSpot account and you can just learn through video content. The Skill Up podcast is a version of that through audio. So you can go learn how to be a better marketer, salesperson, get real tactical information via our podcast. And the last one is if you want to get really weird and listen to some strange stories, we have a Weird Work podcast. And the Weird Work podcast is a really fun podcast. It's basically people who have a job that is not the typical 9 to 5, right? So I'll leave it at that. But we have stories of people who are professional bridesmaids, lots of different weird stories of how people make a living. And it's a really fun way to spend 30 minutes of your time.
So, of course, for everyone listening, what is the best way for them to keep up to date with all this work that you're doing at HubSpot? Any new developments, or even maybe contact a member of your team if they just want to ask a few questions?
Yeah, you can go to HubSpot.com. You will have numerous ways you can reach out to us because, again, we want to make sure that it's a frictionless experience. You can reach out to us in chat. You can reach out to us on email. The other thing you can do is go to academy.hubspot.com. You can create an account there and start learning from day one. Get a lot of our video content and start to figure out how you can, grow better, do better marketing, do better sales. So there's some of the ways that you can connect with us. And if you're really interested, if you are a startup and you're like, wow, this sounds really cool, I want to really get started with that, I want to get this growth suite platform, you can go to HubSpot.com and look for the HubSpot for Starters program and go sign up and start to look into that discount because it's really amazing discount, really, really good offer.
And I, like many people listening, use so many of HubSpot services and have used them over the years. And I love how you always try to create that frictionless experience. But having spoken with you today, I just love how down to earth and open you guys are too. So a big thank you for taking that time to come and speak with me today.
Yeah, well, thank you first, Neil, for being a HubSpot customer. And second of all, thank you for that. Like, we want to share what we've learned, try to help people in the way we can.
What a great story. And if you are a startup founder listening to this podcast today, wherever you are in the world, I hope you take to heart that the guys at HubSpot were in the exact same position as you are right now. So keep that grind going, flex your hustle muscle, and finish the game, my friends. And I do think to many people listening before today's episode and listening to Kieran there, is you might have had the perception that HubSpot was just some kind of giant tech behemoth with no soul. And that's why conversations like the one I had with Kieran today, I think are so important. Because when you strip all that back, we're all on the same journey together, leveraging the same technology and finding our own way. And I think all too often it's very easy to look at someone's highlight reel on social media or online and say, hey, it's easy for them, or look on with envious eyes from afar. And the reality, of course, is there are no shortcuts, and no matter what your background, gender or race is, and wherever you're listening to this tech podcast, we're all exactly the same, with the same doubts, fears, ambitions, and a deep down desire to simply make a difference in a small way with our time on this tiny planet. Man, I dug down a little bit deep there, didn't I? I didn't mean to bare my soul. So thanks to Kieran for coming on the show today. And feel free to check out the HubSpot podcast too, as long, of course, as you don't forget to come back to this one. But we have reached that time again where I leave the door to my office slightly open and say, look, if anything we've talked about today has resonated with you in any way, shape or form, and equally, if you have your own insights or your own expertise to share, please email me directly, techblogwriter@outlook.com, or if you're more of a visual being, send me a wacky pic or meme to Twitter or Instagram, and my username is the same at both, just @NeilC.Hughes. But more than anything, just thanks for joining me again today. And if you're game, and I know I am, let's do this all again tomorrow. And a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.